Hey there, I want to talk a little bit about my favorite deck in this format and the one that I think might be best overall, 3-color green. I'm going to go over the game plan, a full draft walkthrough of my own, some of my other trophy decks, and some extra tips as well at the end. So the more that I played Duskmourn, the more success I ended up having with 3-color decks. Initially I wasn't really splashing correctly or knowing how to build things, and so when I was going outside of 2-color it was going badly for me, but once I kind of figured out what to do, then it really helped my win rate. The game plan is pretty similar amongst all of these 3-color green decks. You want to prioritize cheap, efficient removal. You are planning to take the game long, and you need to be able to survive to do that. Usually you don't get much of this removal from green itself, which is why you're looking into other colors. Your usual premium examples, we've got like Scorching Dragonfire, Glassworks, we've got Unable to Scream, Unnerving Grasp, also things like Nowhere to Run, Final Vengeance, Winter's Intervention, Withering Torment, and then relevant gold cards as well, like Beastie Beatdown and Drag to the Roots. I would say these next two things are maybe tied for how important they are, but let's firstly go with card advantage. You are playing a control deck, you are going to run out of steam and lack consistency if you're not drawing cards, and the best color for this would be blue, but both black and red have some options for it as well. Glimmerburst is absolutely amazing here, also Meat Locker is very strong. Green can get card advantage through cards like Say Its Name, and you could argue that mana fixing to some extent is a form of card advantage. Black mainly has, say, Commune with Evil and Derelict Attic as well. The third important thing is fixing. You do want to take it a lot higher in this archetype than others. Basically what you're doing is taking the most powerful cards over 3 colors. Most people have to settle for 2. As a trade-off for that, you need the fixing, otherwise you're going to be less consistent than them. The upside is that if you get the fixing early, then you're kind of free to scoop up these powerful cards that go later. Under the Skin is a crazy card anyway. You want it even more because it can get you lands back out of your bin. Spineseeker Centipede is kind of the core of this whole game plan. You will happily play lots of them. You should be pretty reliably turning on Delirium, and it's just a body that blocks and extends the game and can trade up whilst fixing your mana. Personally, I'm quite willing to play Moldering Gym in these decks. Although it's not a great card normally and it's a bit slow, this does kind of fit the plan that I'm going for. And the final, maybe slightly unintuitive part of this is you do need ways to end the game. So maybe you get some cool uncommons or rares, maybe you get something like Altenac or Vile Mutilator, but if you can't get those, you can do just fine with a few of the land cyclers. Daggermaw Megalodon is pretty darn good in a control shell, Spectral Snatcher is totally respectable, and so is Slavering Branch Snapper. Last thing to kind of keep an eye out for is just good, mostly 2-drop creatures to go up the board and trade off, just to help your removal along so you don't have to be spending removal on every single thing that drops on the board. Wary Watchdog in green and Manifest Dread are good examples of the kind of thing you want, and Overgrown Zealot fits this plan quite nicely too. So this was a draft that I trophied, and I thought it was a pretty interesting one, so I wanted to walk through it with you. Pack 1 Pick 1, we have quite a lot of choices here. We've got Split Up, Enduring Courage, Sporogenic, Under the Skin, Unable to Scream, Scorching Dragonfire, all those are pretty reasonable picks. Basically this came down more to personal preference. Under the Skin might actually have the highest win rate of all the cards here. It is the only particularly good green card, and it's the type of card that I want to be playing. Next pick here is between Unnerving Grasp, Disturbing Mirth, Trapped in the Screen. That's probably about it. Meat Locker and Vanish and Shroud Stomper are all pretty darn good, but they're not on the same tier as those 3. Unnerving Grasp plays a lot better with Under the Skin, and is monocolor, so is a little bit more flexible. Disturbing Mirth sends you very directly down Red-Black Sacrifice. Pick 3, I think it's Inquisitive Glimmer and Glimmerburst are both kind of above everything else. I don't want to be actively going into Bant 3-color really, and again, Glimmerburst is more flexible. I've got no particularly strong reason to pull myself into white at the moment. This one's probably a little bit strange. We've got Get Out, Seize from Slumber, Monstrous Emergence as maybe the most obvious picks. I am quite low on Monstrous Emergence, and I'm relatively low on Seize from Slumber, although it's fine. Get Out is a very strong card, but double blue is a lot to ask. In my head at the moment, I am expecting I'm going to be in some kind of 3-color deck because I have drafted it so much, and I also do have a preference towards Sultai or Bug. In this case, because these removal spells are quite replaceable and this counterspell is going to be quite hard to cast in a 3-color deck, I just decide to pick the fixing. Similarly, maybe a slightly strange pick, we've got Paranormal Analyst, Unable to Scream. It's probably between those two. Wary Watchdog and Coordinated Clobbering are a bit below those. I've already got a couple of Manifest cards. I'm expecting to be a kind of green-blue base. So although Unable to Scream would be maybe the safer Pack 1 Pick 1 out of these two, I decided to get a little bit greedy and go with the Paranormal Analyst. Nothing particularly interesting here outside of Twist Reality. Ticket Booth's playable, but nothing that would pull me into red, and the other cards I'd really rather not be playing. Another relatively interesting choice, we've got Twist Reality, Say Its Name, and Terramorphic. I've already got one Twist Reality, and it does go quite late. It's also double blue, which we mentioned is something I kind of want to be careful about. Say Its Name is a very good green card, but it is more Delirium focused, and blue cares a bit more about, say, Manifest Dread and Self-Mill Delirium cards. I also have basically no 2-drop interaction right now, so I'm a little bit worried about taking my sweet time casting Say Its Name. So with that in mind, I end up going with Terramorphic. Here again, I'm a little bit low on Seize from Slumber. I do love Glimmerburst, but I do already have one. I have a feeling I'll probably be able to get some more later. I'm quite happy to take the fixing again and then not have to worry too much about splashing black. This pack is insane for me. I think Unable to Scream is a little bit more reliable than Sporogenic, so I take it over it even though I've got all this black fixing. I'd be happy to take 3 or 4 cards out of this pack. Again, no playables except for the land, but I'm more than happy to take it. I'm a little bit spooked about dying. I'm lacking removal a little bit, so I end up taking the Grasping Longneck over the Derelict Attic. I think Derelict Attic is a card I would be happier to play, but I'm just kind of more worried about what if things go wrong. Piranha Fly, I don't want to play any of these cards. Pack 2, pick one. There's quite a few cards here I wouldn't mind having. So we've got Fear of Missing Out, we've got Ethereal Armor, we've got Withering Torment, Conducted Machete, Wildfire Wickerfolk, Daggermaw, Concuous Rat, and Murder. It wouldn't be unreasonable here to take Fear of Missing Out and just go into Rug. Fear of Missing Out is a strong card, and you should be able to label Delirium in 3-color pretty well. Wildfire Wickerfolk is a more aggressively leaning and harder to cast card, so I wouldn't pick it over Fear if you were to go down that route. But I have been picking up the black removal, and I do rate Withering Torment pretty highly. It is instant speed, and it deals with a lot of stuff. And to fit this plan, I am just looking for more removal. Some pretty decent white cards here, but I still don't really want to be in Bant, personally. There's maybe a world in which I could have ended up in a kind of controlling Bant deck here. But I take the bottomless pool as early interaction and ways to draw cards. Quite a few cards I wouldn't mind playing here, like Break Down the Door, Wary Watchdog, Winter's Intervention, but Nowhere to Run is just like a little bit better than all of them. Next here it's mostly between Val Mutilator and Wary Watchdog. At the moment I am splashing black, and therefore double black for a big guy is not necessarily where I want to be, and I am trying to focus on shoring up my early game before I worry about my late game. In my mind, like a good uncommon creature is nice, but is still quite replaceable by land cyclers that usually I can get later. It massively paid off for cutting blue earlier and get a pick 5 Unnerving Grasp, which is way better than everything else going on here. Here, Skullcrab, Murder, and Fanfooters are all fine. Again, I'm splashing black, so I don't really want double black. Scrabbling Skullcrab fits the bill of early blocker nicely, and I do have a few different ways of triggering Eerie, and if you ever come up against another slow deck, it is a legitimate threat. So how I get a pick 7 Glimmerburst, which is great. I would happily run 2 or 3. It's enough better than Flesh Burrower that I am happy to take it here. So now that I've kind of evened out what I need a bit more, I've got a bit more removal, I've got a few more early 2-drops, I'm happy to be taking the land cyclers as potential ways to close out the game here. There's also an argument for Keys to the House. It is totally fine fixing. I usually find I don't need it very much if I'm going base green though. I can usually get more fixing out of that color than I need to for other artifacts. I'm pretty happy to see the Shark here. I had a very late Vanish from Sight, which is honestly a great card, and again I like it enough more than Flesh Burrower that I'm willing to go slightly off curve to take it. A late Duskmourn's Domination, it is something that can definitely make the deck as a way to close out a game. Now I've got 2 land cyclers, and I generally won't play more than like 3 finishers, so thinking that if I want one I can get one again in pack 3, I just take the Fanatic here as just a decent value card. I had 2 very playable rooms here. I go with the one that isn't going to deal me damage because I do already have an okay amount of card draw with the Glimmerbursts. Both of these are very defensible. So pack 3, pick one. There's some great cards here, most of them are not in my colors. Cursed Windbreaker is fine, Glimmerburst is good, Winter's Intervention is fine as well. Again, I think I've got an okay amount of card draw. I really just want to not die and be able to survive until the end game, so I'm taking Winters here. I think there's reasonable arguments for any of these 3, but I just want the interaction. And here Brood Spinner is a great payoff. I'm kind of looking for both 2-drops to keep me alive and ways to close out the game as a mana sink. Brood Spinner fits everything I'm looking for here. I'm hoping to wheel Manifest Dread, Terramorphic, or Twist Reality here. Again, more of what I'm looking for, a cheap interaction against Sporogenic Infection. Another late pick on Nerving Grasp, which is one of the best things I could be finding here. A pick 5 Brood Spinner, somehow I'm getting very paid off in back 3 here. Speaking of, there's the Swarm Weaver. My one and only rare, but I even have Under the Skin to get it back from the graveyard. Again, now I've got multiple ways to close out the game, and okay amount of card draw. I'm just looking to not die, so I go with Skull Snap over Glimmerburst. I get a very late Sporogenic. I get to have my cake and eat it. I wheel the Glimmerburst. I wheel both the Twist Reality and the Manifest Dread, and I take the earlier interaction here. Maybe at this point it's okay to take Twist Reality, but now I also care about enabling Delirium for the Swarm Weaver, so I go with the Manifest Dread. I wheel the Vanish from Sight. There's a lot of 4-drops that I'm thinking about playing, but this card is very good in the format, and that's the end of it. In the end, this deck goes 7-1, and my main ways of closing out the game are the 2 Brood Spinners, the Swarm Weaver, and the Daggermaw Megalodon, and it does the job just fine, being able to get a lot of card advantage from drawing or things like Paranormal Analyst and recurring the Swarm Weaver. It ended up being a breeze of a draft. But just to show some other successful versions of these kind of bug drafts, Oblivious Bookworm is an amazing card if you can get it. Fits the bill of both a potential blocker if you absolutely need it, and a card advantage engine. In this particular deck, I got the Entity Tracker, which is so good. Even if you draw 1 or 2 cards off it, then you're pretty happy, but usually get to draw way more than that. Threats around every corner is also amazing fixing, and in this case synergizes with the Manifest Dread sub-theme. This deck here had a few more bomb rares. We got Onslaught, Flytrap, and also Kaito. But again, same plan, a lot of 2-drops, as much interaction as I can get, and a few big guys to finish off the game. I do actually quite like Bashful Beastie. It can be a decent way to grind out the end of the game, and if you have a few other larger creatures manifesting into them can also be great. So branching out to the other 3-color green decks. This is a successful Abzan list that I had. The idea with the Abzan decks is that you really want to be able to hard cast your big guys, and then casting the reanimation spells is just a way to get them back in after they've died. It's not plan A that you're discarding them and then reanimating them. It's just too inconsistent of a way to play. So you'll see in this I'm running even Haunted Screen as a way to ramp up to 6 and 7 cost. And in this case, having Say Its Name to repeatedly get back my relevant bomb creatures was amazing. Some poor opponents had to try and deal with the Swarm Weaver like 3 times. Rug is also quite a successful color combination. Because you're in red-green, you care a bit more about Delirium, because you have cards like Wildfire Wickerfolk and Patchwork Beastie. So in this case, I think Say Its Name goes up quite a bit in value as a way to help trigger that. But you can see the core game plan is still the same. And last example I have here is a Jund deck. Again, a few kind of spicy rare cards. We've got Charred Foyer, 2 Chainsaws, and an Onslaught. So though this is a few more Flesh Burrowers than I would like to be running, I've definitely got the late game to pay it off if I just survive long enough. And being able to trade off with everything and grow the Chainsaws works out pretty well. So if you've also been drafting 3-color, tell me how it's been going for you, whether you've been finding success or we've been getting run over by all the aggro decks. And please check out my playlist here with my other draft guides.